Hello, this is a tutorial for creating a starting deck for the Pathfinder Adventure Card Guild. Everything you need to know about the PACG can be found online at paizo.com in a free document called the Guide to Pathfinder Society Adventure Card Guild Organized Play. You can also find the base rules there for the Pathfinder Adventure card game. If you're playing in the PACG, you're going to want to read the Skull and Shackles base set rules. Alright, so what we're going to do here is create a couple of starting decks. We're going to be using the Fighter class deck, but there's a bunch of varieties out there. There's Clerics, Wizards, Sorcerers, Rangers, Rogues, Bards, and Fighters. In order to build a starting deck, in order to participate in the PACG, you need a class deck, which you can buy. You'll get about 110 cards that when you unwrap them look something like that. We are going to be using the Fighter class deck to create two different fighters here. Of those 110 or so cards, you're going to use 15 to create your starting deck. Now, before we dig into building starting decks, I do want to go over the anatomy of the cards a little bit. There's a lot of information on the cards, but only three things matter for the purposes of building a starting deck. The first is the card's type. This one is a weapon. There are weapons, spells, armors, items, allies, and blessings. 6 different types of cards that are going to go into making your starting deck. There is also the set indicator. This one is a B. You'll see B and then 1 through 6 as options for set indicators in your class deck. You can sort of think of the B as 0. Then you have traits over here. These are the big bold words in black. Basic is a very important trait that you're going to want to pay attention to. It's going to come up quite a bit when creating your starting deck. All the rest of it, don't need to worry about for building your starting deck. So, first we're going to build a starting deck for Valros, the iconic Pathfinder fighter. This is the front side of the card. Really doesn't matter for the purposes of building your starting deck. What you want is on the back, because it holds his card list. I said that your starting deck is going to have 15 cards, and this card list tells you what types of cards you're going to have. For instance, Valros has 5 weapon cards, he has 2 armor cards, 2 item cards, 3 allies, and 3 blessings. So, with this now in mind, I'm going to move him off to the side so all we see is his character list. He needs 5 weapons, so you're going to have a pile of weapons. In fact, I've taken the Fighter class deck and kind of separated it out here. I got my pile of weapons, my pile of spells, my pile of armor, items, allies, and blessings. So I need to find 5 weapons for Valros. And when you're building a starting character, a starting deck, what you're looking for is 2 things. 1, does the card have the B set indicator? And 2, does it have the basic trait? In a perfect world, every card in the starting deck will have the B set indicator and the basic trait. But as I start looking through all the weapons available to Valros, I discover that in the Fighter class deck, there's only 3 weapons that have the B set indicator and the basic trait. There's the mace, there's the long spear, and there's the long sword. There are quite a few other weapons that have the B set indicator. For instance, there's a ranseur, or perhaps a warhammer. But there are none of them that have the basic trait. So, in this case, what you're allowed to do is choose any B set indicator card to fill in the requirement. In this case, I'm going to give him a glaive, which has the elite trait we'll see here. And I'm going to give him a greatsword, which has no special trait like basic or elite or what have you. But I just think it's a pretty cool weapon. So, that gives him 5 weapons. We take those, put them in his deck down here, and then we move on to the next thing that he needs, which is armor. he gets 2 armors. Looking through all the armors available to fighters, I see that there are 4 cards that meet the requirements. B set indicator with the basic trait. There's leather armor, there's buckler, and then there are 2 instances of chainmail. Knowing the front of Valorous' card, I know he's proficient with heavy armor, so I'm going to give him 2 chainmails, which are heavy armor. And take the rest of these, put them back. He gets 2 items, and looking at the options available in the fighter class deck, there are 3 possibilities that have the V set indicator and the basic trait. There is a crowbar, there is a conch shell, and then there is a signal whistle. Of these 3 options, I'm not a big fan of the signal whistle, so I'm going to put it back, give him the conch shell and the crowbar, put them in his deck, and he has his items. Then he has 3 allies. Must be a pretty friendly guy. He gets 3 allies. There are 4 options in the fighter class deck with the V set indicator and basic trait. We got the Quartermaster, Standard Bearer, Master at Arms, and the Night Watch. Of those 4, I personally find the Night Watch to be the most limited, so I'm going to put him back. Take the other 3. And now his allies are done. Last but not least, he needs 3 blessings, and this is probably the easiest of all the choices you have, because of all the blessings in the game, there's only one, which is called Blessing of the Gods, that has the basic trait. No other blessing that I've seen has the basic trait. So, in the fighter class deck, there are 4 Blessings of the Gods with the B set indicator and the basic trait. I'm going to take 3 of them, put them in his deck, put this other one back. And at this point in time, I got a starting deck of 15 cards for Valorous, and he is ready to play. What makes Valorous interesting in his choice was the fact that he had some trouble making his 5 weapons happen. There was only 3, the longsword, the long spear, and the mace that had the V set indicator and the basic trait. When this happens, you're allowed to choose any other B set indicator card of the appropriate type. In this case, we chose a glaive and a greatsword. So, that is Valorous. Now, we are going to create a different fighter who shows some different idiosyncrasies with the starting deck creation. We're going to use Flenta. Flenta is a halfling fighter with a penchant for scrolls. We're going to flip her over and see that she has a different card list than Valorous. She only gets 4 weapons, and she gets 3 spells, which he had none of. She doesn't get a lot of armor, and she doesn't get a lot of allies. So we're going to move her over to the side here, so we just see her class list. Card list. And she has to have 3 weapons. Well, we already know from Valorous that there are exactly 3 that meet the criteria of B, set indicator, and basic trait. The mace, the long spear, the longsword. So those absolutely have to go in your deck, because in the perfect world, every card in your starting deck is a B set indicator with the basic trait. Once again, like Valorous, we're running into trouble. There's only 3 weapons with the B set indicator and basic trait. So you can choose any other B set indicator weapon to fulfill the requirements. For her, I'm going to give a spike chain +1. It has the magic trait, which is pretty useful. Alright, so I'm going to take those 4, I should say, put them in her deck there. And then she gets spells, which is something that Valorous never had. So looking through the options in the fighter deck for spells, there's only 1 spell that has the B set indicator and the basic trait. We've been down this road before. We know what to do next, right? We take any other B set indicator cards to fill in the requirements. But the fighter deck has a bit of a conundrum. There is only 1 other B set indicator spell, which is called Call Weapon. It actually has the elite trait. So when this happens and you have no more B set indicator cards, what you're allowed to do is take any 1 set indicator card with the basic trait. Looking through the fighter spells, I do find that there are two one-set indicator spells. We got Speed and Obscure, but neither has the basic trait. So what are you supposed to do? At that point, you can take any one-set indicator spell. For Flenta, I'm going to give her Speed because I feel that that is useful to her. At that point in time, finally digging fairly deep into our one-set indicator cards, we have the 3 spells required for Flenta. I'm going to take those, put them in her deck. She only gets 1 armor. I know from looking on the front of her character card that she's only proficient in light armor, so I'm just going to give her leather armor because I feel that that's the best option for her. She gets 3 items. If we remember from Valoros, there are exactly 3 B set indicator items of the basic trait. In the fighter class deck, there's the crowbar, the conch shell, and the signal whistle. She really doesn't have any choice here. She has to have 3 items, and there are exactly 3 that meet the criteria, so she has to take them, put them in her deck. Then she gets 1 ally. There's a bunch of choices for her as we talked about with Valoros. There was the Night Watch, and the Master at Arms, and the Standard Bearer, and the Quartermaster, all of which are B set indicators with the basic trait. She only gets 1 of them. I personally like the Quartermaster, so I'm going to put that in her deck, take the rest and put them back. And then last but not least, she needs 3 blessings. Just like Valoros, the only option is Blessing of the Gods, B set indicator with the basic trait. I'm going to take 3 of those, put them in her deck. And at that point, we have a 15 card starting deck for Flenta, which is significantly different than Valoros's, but has some definite similarities as well. So, the trick with Flenta, of course, was spells. Just to review. She needed 3 spells, and there was only 1 B set indicator basic spell in the fighter deck. As we know, the next thing you do is you go to any B set indicator spell. Call Weapon was the only option, and at that point there was no B set indicator spells left in the fighter deck. At that point we were allowed to take any 1 set indicator with the basic trait, of which there was none, and then any 1 set indicator spell, for which we took Speed. So, that is going to be the end of the tutorial. Hope this has been useful. If you have any comments, notice any errors, have any questions, leave a comment below. Thank you.